Welcome to I Think You're Muted, the podcast empowering professional women to step up, speak out, and be heard. I'm Dr. Stephanie Dean, and after hearing I Think You're Muted one too many times in meetings, I realized that many of us are living our lives on mute. Your voice is your most powerful tool, and in each episode, you'll not only get the strategies and stories to help you find it, but now we're diving deeper into the tools and technology that amplify your voice in today's digital-first world. Ready to turn up the volume on your impact? Let's dive in. In the last episode, we dove into using the hero's journey to guide your annual review conversation, reframing your contributions as part of that powerful narrative that shows your leadership and your impact. So today we're building on that foundation by talking about how you can use digital storytelling to amplify your voice beyond the boardroom. To help us dive into this topic, let me introduce you to someone I think many of you will relate to. Her name is Maya. Maya is a senior project manager in a tech company, and she is brilliant at what she does. But for a long time, Maya felt like she was being overlooked. She was often the one doing the work behind the scenes, making sure everything ran smoothly. But somehow her contributions were always hidden. She felt invisible. Does that sound familiar? Maya wanted to change that, but she wasn't sure how. She wasn't comfortable with self-promotion, and she didn't want to come across as pushy or boastful. But she did want to make sure that her work and her voice was recognized. So today we're going to explore how Maya found her way through digital storytelling and used it to not only amplify her voice, but to elevate her career. We're going to talk about why storytelling is such a powerful tool and how you can craft your own story for digital platforms and the different tools available to share that story. Sound good? Let's go. Okay, so the power of storytelling in leadership. Let's start by talking about why storytelling matters so much, especially for women in leadership. Whether you're leading a team or managing a project or building your personal brand, your ability to tell a compelling story is what sets you apart. I want you to think about Maya again. She was always there. She was always working hard. She was always staying late and supporting her team. Sound familiar? But somehow her work wasn't getting the recognition it deserved. Also sound familiar. So one day, after feeling particularly frustrated about being overlooked for another leadership position, she decided to make a change. But instead of trying to force her way into conversations, she decided to share her story. She started with a simple post on LinkedIn. It was vulnerable, it was honest. She talked about how she had faced challenges as a woman in tech and how she often felt like she had to work twice as hard to be taken seriously, and how, despite her best efforts, she often felt invisible. That post was the beginning of something powerful. People started to reach out. Her colleagues, people in her network, even leaders she admired. They connected with her story because they had been there too. They related to her struggles and the setbacks and the perseverance. And that connection opened doors for her that had always felt shut. Storytelling is what helped Maya break through. It allowed her to share her experience in a way that resonated with others on an emotional level. And that's the key. We remember stories more than we remember facts or figures. We remember how something made us feel. When you share a story, that taps into emotion. It builds a deeper connection because it creates empathy. People may forget what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. It's that emotional bond that sets leaders apart. So for Maya, her vulnerability created a space for others to see themselves in her journey. They saw her struggles as their own. And when she shared her victories, they felt that sense of triumph too. This deeper connection isn't just about building relationships. It's about creating influence. When people feel something because of your story, they're more likely to trust you and support you and follow you. They care. They see you as someone who understands, who's been where they are, who's willing to share these authentic parts of the journey. And that is why storytelling is such a powerful leadership tool. It's not just about managing tasks. It's about leading people. And to lead effectively, you need to be able to connect with them. So Maya's story shows that digital storytelling can amplify your voice and make a real difference in your career. Whether it's a post on LinkedIn or a YouTube video or a podcast episode, the way you share your experiences can inspire other people. So let's start with some of the key elements of digital storytelling. It's one thing to tell a story in person where you can use your body language and eye contact, but when you're working online, there are some elements that become even more important. One major difference is the absence of extra-linguistic cues. So an extra-linguistic cue is the verbal signals that add depth to our communication. Things like facial expressions, tone of voice, gestures, body language. In face-to-face communication, these cues play a huge role in conveying emotion and intent. They help your audience understand not just what you're saying, but how you mean it. So without these cues, it's much easier for messages to be misunderstood. Think about how many times you've received a text message and you weren't quite sure if the sender was being sarcastic or annoyed or neutral. A simple sentence like "K," or I guess that's a word, or "sure, that's fine," can be interpreted in so many different ways depending on the tone behind it. Without those extra linguistic cues, the emotional context gets lost and misunderstandings happen. I know you've had at least one of these conversations. Maybe you sent a message that was intended to be lighthearted, and suddenly you're in the middle of an argument you never saw coming. That is why when we tell stories online, we have to be intentional about adding back the emotion and the clarity that might otherwise be lost. So interestingly, this is where widespread adoption of emojis come into play. So emojis have become a way to add back some of that emotional cues that are missing in digital communication. So a simple smiley face or a thumbs up can convey friendliness or approval or humor in a way that a plain text cannot. I do laughy emoji way too much. Emojis can help bridge the gap between what we intend to say and how it's received, making our message more relatable and reducing the chances of misunderstanding. So when you're telling a story digitally, whether through a LinkedIn post or a YouTube video or a podcast, you need to find a way to compensate for those missing cues. And this is where elements like your word choice or your pacing or visuals become even more important. You need to be deliberate about how you convey emotion, whether it's through the tone of your voice in a podcast or the visuals you use in a video or specific language you choose in a written post. By doing this, you ensure that your audience not only understands your message, but also feels the emotion behind it. So first, let's go back to Maya. When she decided to start sharing her story, she knew that her audience's attention span would be this short. So she made her post concise. She started with a hook, something that would grab people's attention right away. And in one of her posts, she opened with, "I used to feel invisible at work, and here's what I did to change that." That opening was enough to make people want to keep reading. You've probably heard about hooks with social media. So once she had their attention, she moved into the heart of her story. She talked about her challenges, how she overcame it, lessons she learned. She focused and made sure that each post had a takeaway that others could learn from. So storytelling at its core is about taking your audience on a journey. A great story has, like we just said, a hook, something that grabs attention immediately. This could be a provocative statement, a personal antidote, I can never say that word correctly, or a question that sparks curiosity. It also has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? That journey, a clear structure that guides the audience. The beginning sets the stage, it introduces a problem or a situation. The middle explains a struggle, the obstacles faced, and the actions taken. And the end reveals that resolution, what was learned, what was achieved. And of course, every good story has emotion, right? It's critical. People connect through that, not just facts. So a good story makes the audience feel something, whether it's inspiration or empathy or hope or motivation. That emotional connection is what keeps people invested. And then, of course, it needs a takeaway. What's the point? What's the lesson, the insight the audience can walk away with? A good story leaves your audience with something they can apply to their own life or their own work. So now that we've broken down the elements of a great story, let's get into actionable tips that you can use in your own storytelling, because we are all about the action here. I want you to start with a hook. Think about your opening line as an invitation to listen. For example, instead of starting with, "Here's my experience working in a big tech company," try, "I felt invisible for 5 years, and then everything changed in a single meeting." This pulls the audience in and makes them want to know what happened in that single meeting. Using this technique across multiple platforms, whether it's a post on LinkedIn or an opening line for a podcast episode, will reel in an audience. But I also want you to make it relatable, right? Share experiences that others can relate to. You want your audience to see themselves in your story. And this is where vulnerability plays a key role. Don't be afraid to talk about your struggles or your failures. When Maya shared her experience of feeling invisible at work, her vulnerability resonated with others who felt the same way, even if they hadn't spoken about it publicly. And also be concise. When you're telling a story online, people's attention spans, they're shorter. You need to get to the point quickly. Start with the most important details first and avoid rambling. I am the queen of that. I have to work on it. Think about how each part of the story serves the overall message. Does it just add value or is it just filler? That's important. This is particularly important in social media posts where brevity is key, or as Shakespeare would say, the king of wit. So, digital storytelling is different from traditional storytelling in that it allows for visuals. You've got photos, videos, text-based graphics. If you're sharing a story on Instagram, for example, a picture of your workspace or behind-the-scenes footage of your process can add a deeper connection. Marie Forleo, for example, uses vibrant visuals in her content. Her videos and her images are designed to reflect the energy and the passion of her message. And that makes her storytelling more impactful. You feel like one of the women that she is talking directly to. So I want you to show, don't just tell. Whenever possible, show your audience what happened rather than just telling them. So instead of saying, I felt overwhelmed, you could say, I had 5 deadlines looming and every time my inbox pinged, my heart raced. This paints a picture in the audience's mind. It helps them visualize the situation and feel what you felt. Okay, and then you're going to end with a clear takeaway. Always give your audience something to walk away with. What did you learn? What can they learn from your experience? End with a clear message or insight that others can apply to their own lives. This could be a lesson, a call to action, or just a thought-provoking question. Okay, so let's get back to Maya. She realized that visuals were incredibly important, as we all do in this social media generation. So she started adding photos, nothing over-polished, just simply images of her workspace or snapshots of her in action during a project. These visuals brought her story life and added personality and a touch that connected her audience with her on a deeper level. Another example of this is Brené Brown. She excels at using visuals in her storytelling. She often shares simple quote cards or short videos combining vulnerability and authenticity with imagery that resonates with her audience. Her use of visuals helps deepen the impact of her words and makes her content more memorable. So, we have some key takeaways here. Whether you're using LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube, the principles of storytelling remain the same. I want you to start with a hook. I want you to make your story relatable. I want you to keep it concise, and I want you to use visuals or audio to enhance your message. Show, don't just tell. And then you're going to end with a takeaway message. Digital storytelling is all about adapting these elements for an online environment where you may not have the benefit of those in-person cues like body language, tone of voice. You need to compensate with visuals and pacing and strategic use of tools like emojis to make your story come alive or to not be misunderstood. But most importantly, remember that good storytelling isn't just about broadcasting your achievements. I want to say this again, it's not just about broadcasting your achievements. It's about being human, sharing the highs and the lows and creating a connection through your journey. That's what people are going to remember. So in future episodes, we're going to break down these different platforms and how to use them effectively. Whether it's YouTube for visual storytelling or podcasting, we're really going to get into that for audio storytelling. I'll be giving you the tools to take that story to the next level professionally for your career. So to give you a little taste of that, there are a number of great tools out there that will help you share your story digitally. And today, I'm going to highlight 3 that I think are game changers for women looking to amplify their voices. First up, podcasting. Podcasts are an incredibly intimate platform because you're literally in someone's ear, speaking directly to them. It allows you to build a deep connection with your audience and share longer, more detailed stories that you wouldn't be able to fit into a quick social media post. So in the next episode, we're going to actually dive deep into how you can get started with your own podcast, even if you have never touched a mic before. Okay, next, let's talk about YouTube. YouTube is an incredibly powerful platform because it combines storytelling with visuals. It's a great way to showcase your personality and create an authentic connection with your audience. Maya, who we talked about earlier, eventually branched out into YouTube, where she shared behind-the-scenes videos of her projects, what her day looked like, how she managed teams, and what it took to complete a successful launch. People loved it because it was real and it gave them insight into her world. It is okay not to be super polished on YouTube. In fact, there's been kind of a backlash against that. So finally, let's look at some social media platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram. These platforms are perfect for bite-sized storytelling. Maya used LinkedIn to share her journey, But she also used Instagram stories to show little moments like celebrating a small win or just talking about her day. It made her relatable, and that relatability was key to growing her influence. So remember, it's not about using every tool, I promise. It's about finding the platform that aligns with your voice and your goals. We'll be talking about how to choose the right platform in more detail soon. You do not want to be doing it all. You will lose your brains. Not fun. And of course, like anything new, digital storytelling comes with its own set of challenges. So let's go through a few of the most common ones, as this is kind of an overall generalized episode here. So the first challenge is imposter syndrome. Maya dealt with this too. She often thought, who am I to share my story? Who would even care? It is a question that so many of us ask ourselves, especially when we're stepping into new roles or trying to lead from where we are. Imposter syndrome makes us feel like frauds, like we don't belong in the spaces that we're in. It convinces us that our successes are luck and not skill, and that sooner or later we're going to be found out. But here's the thing. Imposter syndrome lies. It creates a false narrative that tells you you're not good enough or smart enough or worthy enough or enter your whatever enough here. The truth is, everyone has moments of doubts, even the people you look up to. The difference is how you move through it. It's how you get up again. So Maya realized something that was a game changer for her. Her story was uniquely hers. No one else had her experiences, her perspective, or her journey, and that's what made her story valuable. It wasn't about being perfect or polished. It was about being real. And it's the same for you. Your story matters because you matter. And I know that sounds very Mr. Rogers, and we all love Mr. Rogers, so that's okay. But it's true. Your lessons, your journeys, your challenges, those are the things that people are going to relate to. These shape your authentic pieces of yourself. People don't just hear your successes. They want to see the human behind it. They connect with the struggles and the growth and the persistence that got you where you are. Think about how you feel about social media right now, how it's a highlight reel of people's lives. It's not reality. It's not truth. So let's talk about why this resonates so deeply with people. We're all bombarded with perfect images and polished success stories of social media. But people crave authenticity. We're tired of the highlight reel. We want to hear real stories, stories that show the messy middle, the challenges, the failures that led to success. That's where real connection happens. So when imposter syndrome creeps in and makes you feel like your story doesn't matter, remember this. The power of storytelling doesn't come from perfection. It comes from truth. People resonate with vulnerability. The more honest you are about your own challenges, the more others will see themselves in your story and feel inspired by how you have navigated through it. So I'm going to give you 3 quick strategies to overcome imposter syndrome when sharing your story. Number 1, I want you to shift the focus from you to your audience. So instead of worrying about whether people are going to judge you, think about how your story could help someone else. Get out of your own self's way. Your experience might be exactly what they need to hear in their own journey. You're not speaking to everyone. You're speaking to the person who will find meaning in your words. It is okay that you're not everyone's cup of tea. You don't need to be. I want you to start small and build confidence. So if sharing your full story feels intimidating, start with a smaller, more manageable piece. Share a lesson that you learned recently or a challenge that you're navigating right now. The more you share, the more confident you'll become in the value of your experiences. Remember that. Imperfection is relatable. No one relates to perfection because it's unattainable. Sharing your imperfections, your doubts, and what makes uncertainty is what makes your story compelling. It shows that success doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. It's learning and adapting and growing. And then challenge 2 is to choose the right platform. Maya started on LinkedIn because it felt like a natural fit for her professional voice. But when she grew comfortable, she expanded to other platforms like YouTube and Instagram. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, just pick one. Just pick one to start with. Get comfortable there before you branch out. It's better to do one well than to be overwhelmed trying to do them all. Okay, so challenge number 3, tech overwhelm. I love tech. I love toys, and I feel this too. So I know technology can feel daunting. So Maya, she wasn't a tech expert, but she learned step by step. And so can you. Start small. Start where you're comfortable and build from there. In upcoming episodes, we're actually going to cover the basics of each platform, so you're going to have the confidence to get started. Don't forget, next week, we're diving into the world of podcasting, where I'll show you how to take your first steps toward launching a show that builds your influence and makes your voice heard. It's another way to amplify your voice. Thanks for joining me today on I Think You're Muted. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, your voice is your most powerful tool, and when combined with the right digital platforms, you can make an impact far beyond the boardroom. So until next time, keep amplifying those voices. Bye.